Have you ever walked into a place where your presence seemed to make people uncomfortable, simply because you existed? Where the walls looked clean, the lighting was warm, and the furniture was modern and expensive, but none of it could disguise the unspoken message pulsing through the air. You don't belong here. Vanessa Cole felt it the moment she stepped through the glass doors of Merriweather Capital. It was 10:10 a.m. on a Monday morning. The California sun filtered gently through the towering glass panels, casting symmetrical shadows across the pristine marble floor. Vanessa had arrived 20 minutes early, as she always did. Her father's voice still echoed in her mind from years ago. Early means prepared. Prepared means respected. Vanessa was dressed with intention, her slate gray business suit perfectly pressed, a slim leather folder tucked under her arm. Her natural curls were pulled back into a neat bun, her earrings modest, her heels practical but elegant. Every detail had been chosen to say, I am capable, I am credible, I belong. And yet, as she approached the front desk, something in the air shifted. The receptionist, Elise, according to her nameplate, was seated behind a curved white counter, her French manicured fingers clicking idly on a keyboard. She didn't look up, not when Vanessa cleared her throat, not when she took a step closer. Good morning, Vanessa said with calm clarity, offering a warm but professional smile. I'm here for a 10:30 appointment with Mr. Rowland. My name's Vanessa Cole. Elise finally looked up. Her expression didn't change much. She blinked once, then resumed clicking. And you're with? I'm not with anyone. I have a scheduled pitch meeting. It should be under Vanessa Cole. Elise gave a thin smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Right. One moment. Vanessa stood quietly as Elise tapped at the keyboard with exaggerated slowness. It was a silence that stretched just long enough to be uncomfortable. Eventually, Elise waved a hand toward the lobby chairs without looking up. You can have a seat. Someone will be with you shortly. Vanessa nodded. Thank you. She turned and made her way to one of the gray lounge chairs lining the wall. The seat was plush and modern, designed to impress. Vanessa placed her leather folder on her lap, crossed her legs, and waited. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then 40. People came and went. Men in navy suits were greeted with firm handshakes and ushered upstairs within minutes. A young woman in Louboutin heels and a floral blouse was offered coffee the moment she stepped inside. Even a man who arrived late was quickly greeted by someone from the upper offices. No one came for Vanessa. At 11:04 a.m., she checked her watch for the fifth time. Her mouth was dry, but no one had offered her water. Her name hadn't been called. Elise hadn't so much as glanced her way. At 11:20, Vanessa stood and approached the desk again. She softened her voice, not wanting to sound impatient. Excuse me, I just wanted to confirm that Mr. Rowland knows I'm here. I've been waiting for a little over an hour. Elise didn't hide the annoyance on her face. Yes, I told them. They're running behind. You're welcome to keep waiting? Vanessa blinked. Okay, thank you. As she turned back toward her seat, she noticed something odd. A man who had just walked in moments ago was already being greeted and escorted upstairs. She recognized him. He was from another consulting firm, a competitor. Her throat tightened. It's not in your head, she thought. But a voice in her also whispered, don't lose your cool. Don't give them a reason. She sat back down and drew a long, quiet breath. This wasn't her first time navigating spaces like this. Spaces where people like her weren't expected to hold power. But it didn't make it easier. She thought of the late nights spent building her financial consulting startup from nothing, of the times she couldn't pay herself so she could pay her 2 employees, of the presentations she rehearsed in her bathroom mirror, voice steady, posture confident, of her grandmother's words often repeated like prayer. They might not see you, baby, but you make sure they hear you. So she waited, not because she was powerless, but because she had purpose. Her silence wasn't submission, it was precision. At 11:50 a.m., Elise finally picked up the phone. She turned slightly away from Vanessa, speaking in hushed tones. Vanessa couldn't hear the words, but she saw the way Elise's face changed, stiffening, then paling. Tension entered the air like static. At exactly 12:04 p.m., the elevator doors at the far end of the lobby opened with a soft ding. 3 people stepped out. 2 men and 1 woman, all impeccably dressed, exuding authority. Their steps were purposeful, their eyes scanning the room. When they spotted Vanessa, the woman's expression changed instantly, from neutral professionalism to recognition and warmth. She crossed the lobby with swift, confident strides. "Vanessa Cole?" she asked, voice open and firm. Vanessa stood. "Yes." The woman extended a hand. "Diane Webster. I'm on the board. We've been waiting for you upstairs." Vanessa's eyebrows lifted. "I've been here since 10:10, she said carefully. "I checked in with the front desk. I thought maybe the meeting had been rescheduled." Diane's face darkened. Her eyes snapped to Elise, who was frozen in place, lips slightly parted. "You mean to tell me she's been sitting down here this entire time and no one said anything?" Diane's voice cut through the lobby like a blade. One of the men, a tall, sharp-suited executive, turned to Elise. "Why wasn't she brought up immediately? She's the lead on today's pitch." I didn't realize," Elise stammered, her fingers gripping the edge of the desk. Vanessa stood still. The moment was surreal. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even surprised. What she felt was tired, a bone-deep exhaustion that comes from carrying dignity through doors where it's not welcomed. But something else stirred inside her too. Vindication. Diane turned back. "We sincerely apologize, Vanessa. Please, come with us. The entire board is waiting." As Vanessa stepped into the elevator, Diane touched her arm gently. "You handled this with grace. I'm impressed." Vanessa nodded, but her voice remained steady. "I didn't come here to be seen. I came here to be heard." As the elevator doors closed, Vanessa caught one final glimpse of Elise behind the desk, pale and staring at the floor. She didn't smirk. She didn't gloat. She simply exhaled. This, she thought, is where everything changes. The elevator hummed softly as it climbed toward the 22nd floor. Vanessa stood quietly, her leather portfolio in hand, flanked by Diane Webster and the 2 board members. The air was thick with unspoken tension. Not hostility, but expectation. The kind that made you feel like the next 10 minutes could shape the next 10 years of your life. "Just so you know," Diane said, glancing sideways at Vanessa, "Mr. Rowland doesn't know we've come down ourselves. He still thinks you haven't arrived." Vanessa arched an eyebrow. "I see. He's going to be surprised," Diane added, her lips curling slightly into a wry smile. "Let's just say I'm curious to see how he reacts." So am I, Vanessa thought. The elevator doors opened into a sleek sunlit corridor with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the LA skyline. A tall man with salt and pepper hair and a commanding presence stood at the far end, pacing. Mr. Rowland. He froze when he saw them, and the moment he registered Vanessa walking between 2 board members, something in his jaw tightened. "Vanessa Cole," Diane said calmly as they approached. "She's been in the lobby since 10:10. Rowland blinked. "What?" "No, Elise said she hadn't shown up." "She was there the whole time," Diane cut in, "waiting, patiently, without making a scene." Vanessa didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her presence alone was statement enough. They entered the main conference room, a gleaming space with a long walnut table, modern black chairs, and a 270-degree city view. A carafe of lemon water waited at the center. The rest of the board was already seated, murmuring, reviewing documents. Conversation ceased when Vanessa entered. She felt their eyes, the quick assessments, some intrigued, some surprised, a few unsure, but none dismissive. Not anymore. Diane gestured to the head of the table. "The floor is yours." Vanessa didn't hesitate. She walked to the screen, opened her laptop, and connected it to the projector. The title slide lit up, Redefining Scalable Growth in Post-Crisis Markets, Cole Strategies. Then she turned around, and something shifted in her eyes. All the quiet strength she'd bottled in the lobby transformed into focused, electric authority. "Good afternoon," she began. "Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. My name is Vanessa Cole. I'm the founder and principal consultant of Cole Strategies, a boutique advisory firm focused on helping legacy companies pivot with cultural intelligence and operational precision." She clicked. The first data slide appeared, market gaps, competitor blind spots, and missed revenue opportunities clearly mapped. In the last 3 years, Vanessa continued, we've helped 8 mid-sized firms grow their market cap by an average of 28%, not by slashing headcount or pushing aggressive buyouts, but by understanding under-tapped demographics, applying smart digital integration, and centering empathy in the customer journey. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't rush. Her tone was measured, but every word landed with force, with purpose. She spoke about growth curves, operational friction, and how Merriweather Capital's current holdings were leaving millions on the table by ignoring diversity-centered consumer behavior. Every point was backed by precise data, clean visuals, and practical insight. It wasn't just a pitch, it was a masterclass. Mr. Rowland kept shifting in his seat. Vanessa noticed. So did Diane. At one point, a board member leaned forward. You're saying we've underestimated our Latino customer base by nearly 40%? Yes, sir, Vanessa replied, clicking to a slide with geodata overlays. Your analytics team has been misreading regional purchasing power by mapping it against outdated behavioral assumptions. A murmur rippled around the room. Rowland interjected. But surely our internal models— With respect, Vanessa said, turning to him gently, your internal models are outdated by 5 fiscal cycles. The market has evolved. Your data hasn't. Silence. Then a small chuckle from one of the older board members. Well, damn, he muttered. She's right. Diane smiled. For the next 20 minutes, Vanessa walked them through her customized strategy for Merriweather's underperforming verticals. Each recommendation was specific, actionable, and tailored to the company's strengths. Her final slide simply read, "Let's build smarter." She closed her laptop. Silence held for a beat, then applause. Quiet at first, then sincere. One board member spoke up. This is one of the most comprehensive pitches we've seen this quarter. Another added, I'd like to see a follow-up proposal for Q3 implementation. Diane? I'm already on it, Diane replied. Vanessa stayed composed, even as adrenaline buzzed beneath her skin. She shook hands. She exchanged cards. But it wasn't until they exited the room and Diane turned to her with a smirk that Vanessa allowed herself to exhale. You just handed them a mirror, Diane said, and they saw themselves for the first time in years. Thank you, Vanessa said softly, for coming down. You deserved more than just being seen, Diane said. You deserved to be heard the moment you arrived. They walked past Rowland, still lingering near the elevator. He avoided eye contact. Vanessa paused. Mr. Rowland, she said politely. He glanced up, startled. I hope next time a woman who doesn't look like your average CEO walks through your door, you remember today. He nodded stiffly. Diane didn't hide her grin. That evening, Vanessa drove home with the windows down. The city lights shimmered across her windshield like a galaxy she was finally allowed to reach. At a red light, she opened her inbox. There was already a follow-up email from Merriweather's legal team requesting draft contract terms. She looked up at the skyline. She remembered the lobby, the silence, the condescension, the disbelief. She remembered choosing not to leave, choosing to stay. And in that moment, she realized something profound. Respect isn't given when you walk in the room. It's earned when you refuse to walk out. Have you ever realized that the most revolutionary act in the world isn't screaming, but staying, not storming out, but sitting still, steady, and refusing to shrink? Vanessa Cole didn't leave the lobby that day. She didn't demand an apology. She didn't threaten to expose anyone. She simply stayed. But the ripple from that act of calm defiance reached far beyond the glossy floors of Merriweather Capital. In the days after her pitch, a quiet storm began to build, not one of outrage, but of awakening. Vanessa returned to her small but sun-drenched home in South LA the evening after her presentation. She walked up the narrow staircase to her second-floor apartment, kicked off her shoes and sat on the floor beside her coffee table, too exhausted to pour a glass of wine, too wired to sleep. Her mind replayed every beat of the day. Not just the pitch, but the way Diane had looked at her, the shift in energy when the board members realized the receptionist had kept her downstairs. But most of all, she remembered Elise's face. Not malicious, just careless, just indifferent. And that was almost worse. She didn't post about it. She didn't make a viral thread or start a campaign. She simply existed. And that, it turned out, was enough. By midweek, her inbox had filled with dozens of messages. A talent director from a Fortune 100 brand, an operations VP who had caught wind of her data. But one email stood out, from a young analyst at Merriweather, a woman named Alina Cho. I saw you in the lobby. I sat behind the glass wall and watched. You were calm and elegant and so clearly being ignored. I wanted to say something. I didn't. I've been thinking about that ever since. Vanessa reread that line, I didn't, again and again. It reminded her of all the times she too had been silent when someone else was being erased. It was the most honest kind of apology. Not performative, just human. By Friday, the story reached LinkedIn. Not from Vanessa, from someone who had witnessed the moment and couldn't stop thinking about it. The post, written by a junior executive in marketing, read, Today I saw the power of dignity. A black woman was kept waiting in our lobby for nearly 2 hours while less qualified men were ushered upstairs. She didn't complain. She waited. Then she walked in, owned the room, and delivered the best strategy pitch I've seen in 5 years. I will never forget what that silence sounded like. The post exploded. By Monday, it had over 60,000 likes, hundreds of comments. Other professionals began sharing their own lobby moments. Stories poured in. A woman told of being mistaken for the caterer at a board meeting she was supposed to lead. A Nigerian software engineer recounted being asked where the real developer was. A Sikh man wrote of being told, "You're very articulate," after delivering a security protocol that saved his company millions. They were stories of erasure, stories of quiet humiliation, stories of people who stayed anyway. And suddenly, Vanessa's story wasn't just hers. It became a symbol, a mirror held up to corporate culture's most polite, insidious biases. Meanwhile, Merriweather Capital was in full damage control. Elise was quietly put on leave. Internal HR launched a culture audit, but more interestingly, CEO Philip Lansing requested a personal meeting with Vanessa. Diane texted her. He's nervous. I'd take the meeting if I were you, just to watch him sweat. Vanessa accepted, not out of spite, but because she knew her voice carried weight now. In the CEO's corner office, a room full of modern art and apology coffee, he offered her a formal apology and asked her to consult on an internal overhaul initiative. He slid across a lucrative consulting offer. Vanessa flipped through the pages, calm. This isn't about money, she said. This is about how many voices get buried in your walls every week. He looked away. She didn't push. She let the silence do its work. And it did. Later that week, a major business podcast invited her on for a full episode. Not about scandal, about systems, about how the real danger isn't open hostility, but the quiet, habitual devaluation of people who don't fit a certain mold. She spoke not just about the lobby, but about the invisible tax placed on people of color every time they walk into a room and have to prove they deserve to be there. That episode trended for 2 weeks. Her calm, incisive voice reached corners of the internet where hashtags couldn't go. Then came the part that surprised her most. Emails from high school teachers, from single mothers in Indiana, from immigrant women in Australia who'd seen the podcast through subtitles. One message simply said, I watched your video with my daughter. She's 10. She asked me, why did they ignore her if she did everything right? And I didn't have an answer, but now I know what to teach her next. Then came the article. Dr. Elias Monroe, behavioral economist and best-selling author, wrote a feature in Harvard Business Review titled Poised Power, The Vanessa Cole Effect. We often teach leadership as dominance, as charisma, but Vanessa Cole proved leadership can be stillness. That quiet dignity can dismantle a system faster than a viral tweet. What she did in that lobby, what she chose not to do, will outlast any boardroom shakeup, because it planted a seed of accountability, not loud, but impossible to ignore. Vanessa read the article in her grandmother's kitchen, her 9-eye beside her, chopping scallions. You see, baby, her grandmother said, not looking up. You didn't need to shout. Your spirit did the talking. Vanessa smiled. I just didn't want to be erased. You weren't, her grandmother said, handing her a bowl. You were engraved. A month later, Vanessa launched her own platform, the Cole Table, a hybrid consultancy and mentorship network for underrepresented professionals breaking into high-level leadership. The tagline was simple: "We're done waiting in lobbies. Let's build our own rooms." Her first workshop sold out in 36 hours. The waiting list grew into the thousands. And in those rooms, Vanessa didn't just teach data or strategy. She taught stillness. She taught people how to hold their power in silence, how to turn exclusion into elevation. She didn't just speak. She created space for others to speak too. And here's the final truth. Vanessa didn't take revenge. She took root. She didn't seek pity. She demanded presence. And while the world watched for a woman to crack or scream or storm out, what they got instead was a woman who stood so still that the entire system bent around her. Because some people shatter glass ceilings. Others just stop waiting for doors to open and build a new floor above it. And sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can do in a room that wants to forget you is stay long enough to be remembered forever.